Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of our webinar series, Inside Immigration. Today, we're joined by panelists at Green and Spiegel, Ellie, Slavens, and Azra, Alagic. Please feel free to ask any questions via the pop-up text bar on the right side of your screen, and we will do our very best to address them at the end. If the panelists do not get to your question, you can contact them through the information provided on the screen now. And with that being said, I will then hand things over to our panelists.
Hi, thank you so much, Danielle. So it's been a very busy month rather, in immigration since our last webinar. We've had a lot of government announcements and new initiatives that are great. So we'll try to zoom through all of those in our short half an hour together. The first thing that we wanted to talk about is the resumption of the collection of biometrics for those who are extending their stays as workers, visitors, students, restoring their status, applying for visas. So there was a pause on that for applicants that were in Canada for a while, and it's now going to resume. There is a biometrics checker tool that applicants can use online if they're unsure whether their biometrics are still valid. So that's a good and handy thing to be able to use if they need to confirm. And the centers for collecting biometrics in Canada are available now. So that can be done as part of their application, and it's mandatory again. Azra?
So the next update, it was also a month focused on humanitarian situations. There were updates for Iranian temporary residents as well as Turkish and Syrian temporary residents. To begin, on the Iranian side, as of March 1st, new measures were implemented to help those extend their temporary status in Canada and to move between temporary streams, including studying, working, and visiting family by applying for a new permit from inside Canada. The government also announced that an open work permit pathway will be made available for Iranians already in Canada for up to 3 years. And applications for Iranians in Canada will be processed on a priority basis. Switching over to the Turkish and Syrian new policies. Effective today and in effect until September 25th, Turkish and Syrian nationals can continue to study, work, or visit family by applying for an extension of their status free of charge. An open work permit pathway will be made available for Turkish and Syrian nationals already in Canada, and these measures will make it easier for Turkish and Syrian nationals who wish to extend their temporary status in Canada and to move between temporary streams. So both groups will have some fee exemptions. The Turkish and Syrian temporary residents, the government has waived the requirement to hold a passport or travel document to be approved for a permanent resident visa to come to Canada. So fees for temporary passports, limited validity passports, or emergency travel documents, as well as Canadian citizenship certificates and permanent resident travel documents will also be waived. Those who are eligible under the Iranian temporary residents, the processing fees will be waived for that group.
Okay, and the next announcement that was made was the extension of the CU AET, which is the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel Visa. So now until July 15th, 2023, Ukrainian nationals can make those applications, and if they've already been approved for that visa, they will have until March 31st of 2024 to travel using that visa, and that's when they're able to request an open work permit on arrival at the airport. And those who are already in Canada on this type of visa or open work permit can apply again until March 31st of 2024 to extend those free of charge. So that is good news for Ukrainian nationals. And we've already covered Syrian and Turkish. Oh, so I guess we'll go on to postgrad work permits.
Sure. So postgraduate work permits, there's an extension of postgraduate work permits for up to 18 months to retain high-skilled talent. So recently, those with recently expired or expiring postgraduate work permits will qualify for an additional or extended work permit to stay longer and gain additional work experience for those 18 months. The PGWP program allows international graduates to obtain an open work permit to gain valuable Canadian work experience. Starting April 6th, these measures will allow PGWP holders who wish to stay longer to opt into a facilitated process to extend their work permit and allow Canada to retain high-skilled talent. Foreign national who is PGWP has already expired in 2023, and those who were eligible for the 2022 facilitative measures will also have the opportunity to apply for an additional 18-month work permit. Those with expired work permits will be able to restore their status even if they are beyond the 90-day restoration period, and will receive an interim work authorization while waiting processing of their new work permit application.
We also skipped over the expansion of the Safe Third Country Agreement. Sorry, Azra. You should mention that.
Yeah, so going back there, that was also a recent update. So on March 25th, the Safe Third Country Agreement was expanded to apply at all designated ports of entries and across the entire land border, including internal waterways. Canada also announced we will welcome 15,000 migrants on a humanitarian basis from the Western Hemisphere over the course of the year, with a path to economic opportunities to address forced displacement as an alternative to irregular migration. And then we're moving on to LMIA.
Yes, okay, so as of the end of this week, we're going to be moving to online filing of LMIAs. The government had previously said April 3rd would be the online LMIA mandatory implementation date. Sort of recently it's been changed on certain correspondences to April 1st. I mean, that's over the weekend, so we're just tying up all of the paper-based, what we call them paper-based, but really they are scanned LMIA application forms that are uploaded by email and sent by email method currently. We're going to be switching over next week to the LMIA online, which was previously a pilot project, but it will become mandatory with a few exceptions. So there will still be exceptions for companies that don't have a CRA business number. That would be, like, an example would be a foreign employer. They would still be able to apply for an LMIA using a former method. When there is a recognized outage similar to the employer portal, if the LMIA online portal goes down, then there will be an allowance to submit using the email method, I believe. And the last exception would be where an employer cannot obtain a SIN. So, for example, if a company's HR is sitting in the United States, a global mobility team, for example, and they're not eligible for social insurance number because they're not a citizen or permanent resident or temporary foreign worker, then there would be some room to file using the current email method. So as we sort of request exemptions and exercise cases that have those exemptions and we need to request special consideration for, we'll be able to provide more updates. But for the most part, our employers are all now setting up personal job bank accounts that are mandatory for the employer contact in order to populate the online LMIA form, because the form must be populated first by selecting an employer contact before the rest of the form can be populated online. So we have been filing online LMIAs throughout the course of the month. We've done several of them that way. And with those last few companies that we're going to be transitioning to, we're getting everything set up so that it can be implemented. The government has also announced in terms of LMIA updates that rather than April 30th, 2023, the 30% cap on under the low skill worker program for the pilot for these 7 occupations that were increased from 20 to 30%, that will continue until October 30th, 2023. So that allows employers in construction, food manufacturing, wood product manufacturing, furniture and related product manufacturing, hospitals, nursing and residential care facilities, and the accommodation and food services sectors to have a cap of 30% of their workforce be temporary foreign workers. So those are viewed as sort of the sectors facing the most critical labor shortages, and that will allow them to have a larger percentage of their workforce be temporary foreign workers now until October of this year rather than April, which is good news. And additionally, the 18-month validity for the LMIA has also been extended. So that is great, because the employer would have a longer time to identify unnamed temporary foreign workers if they've applied for an unnamed LMIA, or just to get the work permit submitted for the foreign national who is already named under an LMIA. And they're going to continue to issue 2-year LMIAs for low-wage LMIA positions as well. So those are all the sort of LMIA updates that have just been recently announced. And we will move on to, IEC. I was going to do that as well, right, Azra? Yeah. So for the IEC, Participation had previously been considered when you would be issued your letter of introduction for the IEC, and the government is now retroactively to January 9th of 2023 changing it so that participation is viewed only after the person has taken their letter of introduction and actually been issued a physical work permit. So if a person previously had an approval letter under the IEC but didn't ever end up traveling to Canada and getting their IEC work permit, now that's not going to be viewed as participation, so they would get another chance at participating to the maximum number of times allowed for their country of nationality for participation. So that's good news. There's also been a small expansion for IEC for Spain, some Spanish nationals to come under a young professional stream through the ISEC Vives program. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That allows 18 to 30-year-old Spanish nationals to get young professional work permits under the IEC. But for Spain, there is a requirement that there be a 3-month break between participations, which is not the best for countries that have that sort of gap period. It makes it difficult to use it as a category for multiple back-to-back participations. Okay, moving on to express entry. Azra.
So it was a busy month for express entry draws. In the past month, we had 3 express entry draws to be exact. We had our two all program draws since January of this year. So on March 15th and March 23rd, there were all program draws. On March 15th, 7,000 invitations to apply were issued to candidates with a minimum comprehensive ranking score of 490 or higher. And on March 23rd, 7,000 invitations again were sent out to apply with a minimum CRS score of 484 or higher. And to go back to March 1st, there was a PMP draw of the express entry system with 667 invitations to apply sent out with a minimum CRS score of 748 or higher.
And that was significant for express entry with the all program draws, simply because there had been a 2-month hiatus. We hadn't had an all program express entry draw. The last one was January 18th. So there were a lot of candidates that were waiting around hoping to be invited. That in combination with the announcement for the postgraduate work permit extension program has made a lot of people be able to sleep better at night in terms of certainty for their path forward to transitioning to permanent residence or extending their stay as a temporary resident. So good news on several fronts, and we hope to see more consistent all program draws for express entry going forward. Lastly, on Monday of this week, we attended the lunch with the minister where he announced the expansion and basically making a pilot project, the Economic Mobility Pathways pilot, become a federal program. And that program is an economic pathway where employers can hire skilled refugees and other displaced individuals. It works by having partner organizations involved. There's 7 partner organizations. The first step is that the individuals have to be meeting the definition of a refugee or displaced person. It was a program that was had minimal use, and the minister's hopeful that it will become, I think he said, 4 times as large. So I think there was maybe 118 applications approved under that program previously. Hopefully we're going to see more than 400 or so in the program. It wasn't the announcement that we were hoping to see on Monday, but it is something positive that we think will be great if it can. They're definitely our clients have affirmed that it's going to be beneficial for, who've been waiting for something where they're not going to have to go through the provincial nominee program, so they're not going to have to take up a spot with the province, which will make it a more usable program and remove one of the steps. And we looked forward to seeing more information on getting that up and running and becoming a program that we can use more usable for our solutions for certain clients. Now, that is a permanent residence pathway, so employers, if it's going to be 6-month processing, like the minister has said, then that might be something that's great to get people into the job sooner or soon. But I can see certain hurdles in terms of they're looking to hope to secure healthcare workers in those fields, and there's a lot of licensing and red tape in some of those occupations. So perhaps it will be a great useful tool, And I think we've covered all of our sort of updates and announcements on the immigration IRCC announcements and ESTC announcements for the month. Azra, have I missed anything, or have we missed anything?
That covers everything as of today.
Okay, so we can move on then to any questions that people would have about any of these many announcements. And yeah, we'll look to see if there's any questions and what we can answer during our limited time that we have left.
I don't think that there are any questions so far, but if you guys have questions for later, please feel free to contact Ellie and Azra using the information on the screen. I think that is all the time that we have for now. I'll wait a couple minutes to see if anyone has anything to say, but I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. And again, a special thanks to Ellie and Azra for sharing their expert knowledge. If you'd like to discuss any of the topics that were mentioned in more detail, please reach out, as I said, using the emails on the screen now. And I encourage everyone to sign up for our alerts and follow us on social media to keep up to date with the latest developments inside immigration. And I think I do see one question.
Can you please send me the info? I will info on LMIAs. Sure. The recording of this broadcast is available, right, Danielle? Or would
yes. So this information will be available on YouTube if you've missed anything. So we'll send out an email with the YouTube link to everyone once this webinar is finished. So you can get an update on that there.
Mostly a recap of transitioning to online LMIA filing starting next week, and how the online LMIA portal has become mandatory as of next week, with a few exceptions.
Okay. And then I think there's one more question.
So it says, the question is about crazy increase in poster processing times for visitor visa applications outside of Canada. I have noticed some that have increased. Ellie, do you have any experience with visitor visa applications?
Yeah, so there are some very, very lengthy processing times in certain regions of the world where we're talking like, 200+ days for a visitor visa. In some cases where we've seen processing times like that, we have been able to get applications processed faster for people with existing temporary resident status, specifically people who went home and weren't able to get their visitor visa or their worker or student coded visa processed in Canada before returning home. So I really do think that is a general processing time, and of course there's great fluctuation in that processing time. If it's for somebody that was previously residing in Canada, it might not be up in those 200+ days, but sometimes it does take some advocacy on the part of some of these individuals who have, like, we have had clients apply on their own who are back in India and for a wedding, for example, and were stuck there for many months where we had to intervene and assist. And we've had some clients in Africa right now reach out to say, with someone on a postgrad work permit, asking if they can file their visa application from inside Canada, which of course is not possible, but we may be able to assist in having the visa application processed a little bit faster than in that 200+ days, because that's crazy, and they shouldn't really be in the same bucket as somebody applying at first instance to come to Canada for a visit if they're already a temporary resident with authorized valid status to work in Canada. So it is problematic, though. The processing times are quite lengthy in many regions for visitor visas.
I think there's some more questions coming in, if you can see.
Is there a way to make this bigger, Danielle? Because the questions are so small here.
You can undock it clicking the button next to the X.
do that. Do you want to read one of the questions, Danielle, and I'll try to answer it?
Sure. So one of them is, if a person receives an ITA under CEC and has their PGWP expiring this year, should they still need to apply for an extension of their work permit?
They would still need to extend their temporary residence status, whether it be under a new PGWP or with an open bridging work permit, yes, to maintain their temporary residence status until such time as they become landed.
And then another one is, can you advise if the TN visa is reciprocal for US citizens entering Canada?
We have a CUSMA professional work permit stream that is similar to the TN visa for the US. So there are similar work permit categories that mirror the TNs.
And then last one, what's the best program to transfer a work permit to PR and how long does it take?
That would depend very much on the person's language skills, what industry they're working in, their education. It's such a personalized assessment that we couldn't give general advice on that without having a permanent residence consultation with the individual.
Okay. I think that's all of the questions. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Ellie and Azra, for just giving us your knowledge. I hope everyone has a great day, and goodbye.
Have a great day. Take care.